Welcome to the Millennial Reset podcast. Stories of everyday millennials that are redefining success and happiness. Those that have decided to face those subconscious limiting beliefs head on and take the path less traveled to hit reset. Stories that inspire you to take the leap to pursue the passions, dreams, and goals of your inner child and not the expectations of society. If you're new here, welcome. You found your people. I'm your host, Peter Goose, burnt out millennial turned human design and mindset coach, and it's now my mission to create a space to have the conversations out loud around millennial burnout and mindset and inspire and empower my fellow millennial besties to decondition from the programs that keep so many of us stuck and rediscover your most authentic identity, or in other words, the Millennial Reset. And I'm so glad you're here. Hey besties, welcome to another episode of the Millennial Reset podcast. Y'all ever get to that place in your life where things just aren't working out, you're burnt out, you're overstressed, maybe a little bit depressed, and I know that sometimes we get to that place of desperately seeking answers. It becomes really easy to then fall prey to some of these things online, the gimmicks, the miracle solutions. They all sound pretty and amazing, but a lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times they end up being some way for somebody else to make a quick buck off of your pain and emotions. Well, I'm super excited to have my guest on today, Jessica Shipman. She's a little bit of a different, unconventional reset story. Jessica had a bit of a wake-up call after realizing that all of these miracle solutions weren't really doing anything to make her happier. And that this whole illusion that you have to go out there and quote unquote find your purpose is simply a lie. The only way for us to really create meaningful and sustainable change comes from our own power, our own awareness, and our own understanding. So super excited for y'all to hear this story today. Jessica, welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Of course.
So Jessica, we're gonna dive right in. You have been through quite a little journey of finding your own source of inner peace and happiness. And as you know, the Millennial Reset is all about redefining success and happiness. So if you could pinpoint it, what would you say today creates your definition of happiness?
I think finding happiness is not stressing about what my purpose is.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, I mean, to the T, I can resonate with that one. And I think that for some reason or another, we bought into this illusion as kids growing up and even young adults of like, hey, go out there and find your purpose. And we hear all these different things and people saying, find your purpose. And it's like, wait a second. How do I find this magical thing called my purpose? And I think that's something that so many of us go through that struggle of even our entire life so far, trying to find this external thing that's going to bring us happiness and success. But Jessica, you have had, like I said, quite the journey. I want you to kind of take us back for a moment to this point in time in your life where you began to kind of find your way down the beginnings of the quote unquote rabbit hole of all of these people out there, especially when we were growing up in the 90s, even in the early 2000s, all of these people and all of these messages that were being sent to us of the different ways that you could go about finding your purpose. What was the beginning of the rabbit hole for you?
Right. Well, when I was a teen, I was one of those teens watching Montel Williams, Oprah, all the talk shows that I thought were like normal, but I guess they were like a 90s thing looking back now. So now I realize as an adult, Oprah had a lot of snake oil salesmen on that she didn't even realize. And I think she bought into it and still does.
Ooh.
And then especially the Montel Williams show, I was just really taken by the psychic Sylvia Brown. I think it was the first time I saw a psychic and I was like, oh my God. I would watch all the episodes. I started buying all her books. My parents definitely didn't discourage it. I was reading her stuff, giving it to my mom to read too. They weren't telling me like, this isn't real. Like they were like, oh, wow. Okay. Cause I did grow up Roman Catholic. And I guess that just like wasn't doing it for me. So reading all of her books like really, really made sense for me.
Huh.
And I really became what I would call a spiritual person, but now I look back and call it kind of like new agey. But back
Hmm.
when I was in it, I was like, oh no, I'm not like a new age person.
Yeah.
I'm spiritual, not religious, which I feel like so many millennials like describe themselves
Oh
as
my God.
now on their
Yeah.
dating profiles and everything. Like I'm spiritual. Um, so it means, different varieties of things for different people. I
Yeah.
got really deep into it. Like Sylvia Browne's books were like my Bible, right? Like
Hmm.
everything she said about the afterlife. And a lot of psychics, and when you go to psychics and read psychic stuff, they'll tell you that you're psychic too. They're not like that special. They just tune into it, and you can tune
Yeah.
into everything too.
Mm.
So after like reading all these books in my late teens, when I got in my early 20s, living in New York, I was going to a lot of like psychic classes where you can practice your gifts too. And of
Hmm.
course, everyone there is like, you're gifted, you're psychic too. So yeah, really got sucked into that whole world, believing in spirit guides, psychics is a time when a lot of us were watching The Secret, Law of
Oh
Attraction
yeah.
stuff. I read all
Hmm.
of like Abraham Hicks books. I'm sure you know them, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not. I just started meeting a lot of other older millennials like myself, and I'm like, oh wait, it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
I wasn't just the special one who was psychic. We all thought we were, or
No,
a
I'm
lot of
telling
us.
ya, yeah, there was something about Sylvia Brown that made us believe that, like, oh my gosh, Sylvia, like, you're right. She was the first, like, I feel like she was the first one out there that, growing up, we were like, oh my gosh, is psychic ability a real thing? And like Sylvia Brown was kind of the first one that like brought that to the forefront with good old Montel Williams. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think the other thing that you mentioned there too, with like, Oprah, all of the other shows that are out there around like spirituality and I guess just personal development in general, but they all kind of sent the same message, right? Is like that there's a purpose out there for you to find, for you to go search for. And I don't know how much good that did all of us millennials that then went out into the world as young adults to be like, okay, I have to go find something to make me happy. I have to go find something that's, going to bring me a sense of happiness and joy and success in my life, right? Um,
right. Because when I was younger, when you're 16, 17, you're like, okay, what do I want to go to college for?
yeah.
So my parents encouraged me to go to college for something that would make money. So I went
Hmm.
into fashion business. So I work in fashion right now. I'm like, okay, that's kind of fun. It'll make me money. But
Yeah.
also, like, after like reading all these books and like listening to all these different like new agey things, it really started getting in my head that like we all have a specific purpose in life. And once you find that, like you're golden, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's my purpose? And then it also started turning into, because I guess this message combined with capitalism is find your purpose, and that'll be like also your job. Oh, like that sounds like a
Yeah.
great life, right? So like if
Mm.
I develop my psychic abilities and I love it so much, right? Because I am such a futurist. Like I always want to know the future. I mean, it
Yeah.
does help in my fashion buying job as well, but I got to know what's going on in the future. But I'm like, yes, if I can like, tune into my psychic abilities and become this great psychic, then I'll just be like living my best life, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're so right. Like, yeah, it's, I like what you mentioned there about like this whole idea of like purpose combined with capitalism, right? It's like we are programmed with this idea of try to go find your purpose out there. And then whatever that thing is, go spend every waking hour of your day putting all of your energy into that one single thing. And
Right.
now here we are, right? Like 20 years later, and everybody's like, well, oh my gosh, how has my identity become my job title? Well, because that's how we were programmed. It's not our fault, right? But it's
Yeah.
once you become aware of those things and wake up to the reality of like, oh my God, that's all a fucking illusion. Then it's like, oh, okay. Now I can start to make meaningful change in my life based on my own version of truth as opposed to what somebody else programmed me to believe, right?
And I
Um,
started getting like really depressed about my corporate jobs too. Just like,
mm-hmm.
oh gosh, like I'm not doing any good for the world. My purpose also now has to be like, something that's not harmful, which
Yeah.
everything's harmful, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm, having factories make clothing to put in stores and, doing things like that within my job. And so it was really, really spinning me through a lot of my life in so many directions that made me unhappy because I wasn't this like perfect, light worker,
Mm,
soul, perfect, I don't know, a otherworldly human being in this body or something, like
yeah.
whatever. I was deep, deep in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of leads us then to one of your unique experiences, which was the ayahuasca retreat, right? And
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about that. And let's frame it in terms of like when you were going into this whole ayahuasca retreat experience, what was it that you were expecting from it versus what was the reality?
Yes. So I'm not a drug user, like at all. My drug of choice was always alcohol here and there going out. So I was never into doing any type of substances, psychedelics, never done them before. But
Mm-hmm.
ayahuasca, just years ago was kind of like, I think I went in like 2018. It was really framed up as, not a drug, but a medicine. You
Yeah.
call it the medicine. And through this spiritual journey I was on, I was becoming more and more depressed because I really wanted clear answers from my spirit guides, which Sylvia Brown taught us all about.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know my purpose in life because I don't know, like, I just really couldn't even find it within like the spiritual world or any of those jobs or, how long was I still going to be at corporate? I want these answers. And I felt like the best way to get it was going on an ayahuasca journey. So I chose the bougiest retreat ever because I was scared of it. Right. So I'm like, I'm not going in the jungle alone. I'm going to this like really nice place in Costa Rica. And it was gorgeous and nice. But the purpose of that was again so I can get the downloaded information straight to me because that's also what was sold by the owner of the retreat.
Mm.
Um, he did not ayahuasca, but another psychedelic. And he said that, something in the universe spoke to him and told him exactly, very, very clear what he was supposed to do, where he was supposed to buy a resort, what he was supposed to do with his life. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I fell for it. I was like, I want that. I need to do this drug because I need to know what the hell I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I fell so hard for his marketing gimmick story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you and I are kind of on the same page here too. Is like whether it be ayahuasca or whether it be psychics or whether it be, all of these other kind of spiritual things that maybe we don't have a scientific explanation for. I think that there's some sort of truth to that, right? But for you, at least in your experience, the reality of the experience was much different than the expectation of it. And so I know all of our listeners, including myself, are very curious because honestly, I feel like ayahuasca is becoming one of those like almost like millennial fads. It's like if you're lost, if you need a new awakening in your life, like go do ayahuasca, come to this retreat in the jungle. But what was, and not to say that your experience is everybody's experience, but what was the actual experience like for you?
So for me, it was a complete nightmare.
Ooh.
I was so scared to do it. We were all outside. There was about 80 to 100 people doing it as well, right alongside you.
Oh,
And
wow.
everyone takes the same amount and it hits everyone differently. And I was out in like 10 minutes where other people didn't feel anything at all and had, 2 to 3 more cups. I was just completely out. And it was so psychedelic. Like, I don't know, everything was like neon lights and it felt like I was in a never ending nightmare. I felt like a voice in my head was telling me not to breathe. So
Oh
the
my
whole
gosh.
time I was trying not to breathe, I felt pain, so much pain in different areas of my body. I felt like the most annoying voice was just like haunting me, haunting me, haunting me. It would not stop. Like it was, I feel emotional even speaking about it because it was such a nightmare. And I would open my eyes and still see everything like right there in front of me.
Hmm.
So not only was I not getting these beautiful answers, I was trapped in a nightmare. So people who look at it from being a drug experience was just like, oh, that was a bad trip, right?
Yeah.
Um, I still don't like to look at it as like a drug experience, but like I guess it was a bad trip, but I don't even want to think about it like that. I don't know. It was just a complete nightmare. And we did it 4 days in a row, and that was my first night after that experience, literally the next day, everyone's having breakfast outside. The owner's there. I run up to him and I'm just crying. And I'm like, you lied. Like it was a nightmare. It was horrible. And everyone that worked there grabbed my hands. They're like, no, like that was like the experience that was meant for you. Like that was
Huh.
so good. You were purging your ego. Like, oh my God, there's so much bullshit around like purging your ego, all that stuff. And like anything, like even if you go to a psychic, if you go to like anyone spiritual and any bad shit happens, it's almost like you're gaslit and you're like, no, like
Yeah.
that was supposed to happen. That was really good. You better take the medicine again tomorrow and the next
Wow.
day because that's all clearing. You got to clear it out. You got to do it. So even though, this whole process, through my 20s, through my 30s, like all I really cared about too was like knowing like my own inner intuition. And then
Mm-hmm.
like you go to all these spiritual places and you talk to all these spiritual people and they try to convince you not to listen to it, right?
Yeah.
So my inner intuition's like, oh, that was bad. Like I shouldn't do
Yeah.
it again. Like it might almost be dangerous because at that point I'm still, I'm believing in like there could be like dark entities too that can like leak in, right? And I
Uh-huh.
still kind of believe that in life, right?
Yeah.
Like I believe in other things happening still.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm like, something dark was there and that's not cute and I can't like open the door or gateway. If I do this drug it opens the gateway and like something dark might seep in again. Maybe I'm not
Yeah.
protected enough, maybe people around me didn't protect the space enough, or
Ooh.
so my head while I'm still like in that spiritual sphere is going to that and that's what my intuition's telling me, but then they're like, no, it's so good for you.
Mm. Yeah, it's a battle, right? It's a battle between
Mhm.
your own intuition and what society and others somehow or another talk us into. And, again, everybody's experience is going to be different. I don't think Jessica and I think on the same page here. It's like not to knock anybody's experience of if you want to go do ayahuasca and you think that that's going to help you, then I say by all means go do it, right?
Yeah.
But I think also it becomes one of those things too where how much do we, as not just millennials, but as human beings, how much do we talk ourselves into believing that something or somebody else will be able to solve all of our problems or give us all of the answers that we need, as opposed to simply getting quiet enough to be able to listen to our own internal guidance and own internal intuition that has existed all the way along, which, you know, hey, believe what you want to believe, but I mean, I feel like that's just as powerful or more powerful than any other drug that somebody could give you to alter your state of mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're so right. We get so caught up in believing that the things that somebody else tells us or the experiences that they promise when the only source of truth, the only reality that's happening is our own perception of reality, right? And whew, yeah, that's a big one right there.
Yeah.
um, so you did that. You did that, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think you mentioned earlier you did it twice, right? You went back like 6 months later.
Right. So because I was so um what's the word, like entranced by the owner and this place, which is
Yeah.
beautiful place, like oh
Uh
my gosh.
huh.
So aside from the ayahuasca experience, you are there with 80 to 100 different people from all around the world. You are all throwing up next to each other. You're going through this crazy experience.
Yeah.
It was so amazing meeting all those people and like
Yeah.
doing an experience like that with those people. I'm still friends with them. I have all these friends around the world. Like, I almost want to go back because of that, like it
Yeah.
was such good food. You just feel like I tell my husband, I'm like, how did I not ever join a cult? Because I'm like, shit, like you're there for a week. And I'm like, I just want to be in this community of people eating all this good food, just everyone helping each other. So with the owners telling me that that experience was such a good experience for me, I went back for a couple of reasons. A, because I love the community. B, because they were telling me this is what I needed, and I didn't get what I went there for that first time. I didn't get
Mm,
my spiritual answers from the universe or whatever.
yeah.
So I felt like I needed to kind of work with the medicine a little bit more to be more
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with it, not listen to it when it tells me to kill myself and not breathe, right? Like breathe. Because once
Yeah.
I started breathing, it kind of opened up for me. And it felt better.
Yeah.
Um, So I was like, okay, I need more time with the medicine. So I'm going to go back in 6 months. And also the first time I went, they had 2 different types of ayahuasca. And so for 2 days was a different type of ayahuasca that like really just makes you shit your pants. So I kind of like didn't do that. I didn't do that one. So I went back again when they were only going to do the first type of ayahuasca, right? So yeah, I went back and I had a slightly better experience, but I was a little bit more scared of it.
Yeah.
And I had more of a meditative experience the time I went back. And just felt like a nicer like meditation where I claimed that I got what I was looking for, even though it still wasn't that clear. It still kind of felt like, I don't know, just things intuition hits that I would get out of meditating.
Yeah.
So it was, again, a little bit better of an experience. However, overall, soon after I left, I kind of realized certain things about the resort after kind of when you, I'll say the word hypnotized, when you're kind of like hypnotized on the marketing and stuff, and you think it's such a great place. And then you're like, oh, it's okay that like Fred over there is bleeding and Sally went to the psych ward twice. And, you know, Jeremy had a breakdown and the paramedics came. This is all a process, you know?
Yeah.
It's
It's
like,
all part of it.
yeah. So
Bob's over here shitting his pants.
and then I'm like, oh wait, like, and then things started coming out where like a lot of people were hurt or mentally hurt, after like really going through depression after and stuff like that. And so it took me a couple of years to actually realize like what people went through there isn't actually such a good thing. Some people had wonderful experiences and did not get hurt at all.
Yeah.
But the negative effects it had on people physically and mentally that did have those negative things, you know, there is a cautionary tale to be told. So it kind of started making me realize that like, oh wait, I fell for really good marketing and I fell for someone's what I believe to be now is like a fake story to bring people in, because the owner, you know, he bought before he did drugs and was like this better person, he was the owner of like, you know, wannabe strip clubs and places that do plastic surgery and blah blah blah. And not that any of those places are bad. It's just like, what can get me this quickest buck, right? So I'm like piecing all this together and starting to realize that like maybe all these people who are saying they're like these spiritual gurus or leaders or thought leaders aren't really that.
Yeah.
And I think I've been tricked. And like, I think I've been tricked a lot.
Yep. And I think it's, you know, right, it's probably not everybody. It's not to say that like everybody that's doing something out there that's spiritual is out there to quote unquote get us, right? But I think that you're so right that I think it's very easy for other people to use spirituality and like the healing journey as a way to get us so easily bought in, because they know that that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for healing. We're looking for the awakened moment, right? And it's like, then it becomes this thing where it's like, instead of them actually providing the solution, they're just selling the quote unquote solution, when in reality it's just them. And I'm not, again, not saying that everybody else out there to scam us, right? If you want to go do ayahuasca, I'm sure that many people have had a great experience with it, but it's just at least allowing yourself to become aware of the fact that not everybody that's doing it is out there doing it for the right reasons.
Right. And yeah, I went through all the different levels of being a Reiki practitioner. I had maybe, you know, 4 clients come over. I was trying to start my own practice and see if that was my, you know, my life purpose too. And I was definitely not trying to trick anybody. So I know there's people out there that like think they have this gift. Probably some do have a gift. And you know, their heart is in the right place doing it. It's like mine definitely was. I wanted to like help people. I was just like, donate if you want to. So I was one of those people with like good heart just trying to do it. But I also stopped that because while I was doing it, I was like, something just doesn't feel authentic, right? The word authentic now, but something just doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like it's it. So I'm just gonna like stop.
Oh yeah, I've totally been there too. I was like, when I tried after I quit my job, I was like, I wanted to just be like a personal development. Like I wanted to go around the world and speak like, the next Tony Robbins or whatever. And I was like, wait a second, what the fuck am I talking about? Like, if I'm going to talk about something, let me at least get educated in it and at least start like talking about something that I know as opposed to just like putting myself out there as like this miracle coach for people. And yeah, eventually it just got to that point where I was like, oh my God, this does not feel right at all. This is not the authentic me.
Mm.
Um, but it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like it was kind of like a slow process for you of coming to that realization that, none of these things or none of these experiences were going to help you in creating the sense of happiness and success or stepping into, your most authentic self. What was the journey like for you? Was it an all of a sudden realization for you, or was it kind of a slow burn for you where you began to realize that, oh, wait a second, I actually need to stop looking for the solution out here and start looking for the solution in here?
Yes. Well, it was slow getting my mind out, becoming
Yeah.
visioned of like new agey spiritual stuff because I went to the retreat twice in 2018 and then 2020. It took me like
Mm-hmm.
years to like figure out that like my experience and a lot of other people's experience wasn't actually so good. And again, I don't blame the ayahuasca or anything. It's just kind of like marketing gimmicks,
Yeah.
bad people pretending to be good people, or maybe they think they're good for a while, but then they, go back into like bad ways and don't even realize it. So it
Mm-hmm.
took me like time to like look back and realize like, wait, what happened in my life? And then I started thinking about how many psychics I went to in my 20s. And I'm like, wow, like that actually really harmed me, because if a psychic told me like, if it's January and the psychic's like, you're going to meet somebody in December, I'm ignoring everybody till December. I could pass
Yes.
that like a potential husband then,
Yeah.
um, which is fine because I have my husband now. I just got married, blah, blah, blah. And it's great. So
Woo!
it all works out, right? But I was not fully living my life and flowing with it because I was listening to psychics telling me when things were probably going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that like really tripped me up in relationships in life, really just altogether like tripped me up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, realizing maybe things weren't so right with like how people market themselves. And then at the same time in 2020, all of a sudden I just realized that everybody on Instagram's a psychic and they think they're a
So
psychic
true.
or like this, because you can like literally, what is the last stage of Reiki? Like a Reiki master. You can become a Reiki master in like 5 weekends.
Yeah.
I just feel so icky to call yourself a master
Mm,
in
yeah.
like a month and a half of something.
Yeah. It's
Um,
true.
because you just paid like whatever $1,500 worth of classes and got like downloads, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many other things mixed in. I was going to my psychic classes and I met a guy there who started dating, and I realized he was like an awful person.
Oh
And I
gosh.
realized a lot of other people in the class were like lying about things.
Yeah.
One woman was just trying to teach us magic and stuff and just like lying about how she grew her Instagram followers. She said she did a magic spell to get more
Mm-hmm.
followers. So I'm like,
Oh my
honey,
gosh.
those are all bots. You paid
Mm,
for them. I called her out on it and she was so nasty to me.
yeah.
So literally all these things happened at once in 2020. During the pandemic, and like, wow, like so many people are claiming to be this and that, like they just have pretty marketing. I don't know if
Yeah.
any of this is real. I wrote a blog about it. I wrote a blog about my ayahuasca experience and the resort. The guy who claims to be this light worker and he's like a millionaire, he sued me.
Oh my
So I was just like, oh, this is
gosh.
like very, very clear that this guy is
Wow.
a nice person. Because like I have a blog that like my mom reads. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't really out there. Like,
Yeah.
somebody read this thing.
Uh,
Like, oh, you're actually a really bad person.
yeah.
So all of these things were like hitting me at once. And it was also like just seeing friends go down the rabbit hole of like everything else that was
Yeah.
happening in the pandemic with like spiritual people believing some of our leaders were like light workers. And
Mm.
I was like, oh no, no,
AKA
that
Trump, let's
feels
just
like,
name it.
yeah. So this feels like really weird. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is happening? And everything just blew up. And then I was introduced to this seems like a long answer to your question. I was introduced to this other podcast. It's called Oh No, Ross and Carrie. I don't know if you've listened to
What's it
them.
called again?
Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
Okay.
And they are skeptics, right? And
Yeah.
they are skeptics in like such a gentle way where they don't make fun of anything, but they like kind of go into groups or they'll interview a psychic medium and they'll just kind of be like, but hey, like that doesn't make sense. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
So like listening to their podcast at the same exact moment, aka just like, when you put yourself in a bubble of like all my friends are psychics, you kind of just get stuck there if you don't
Yeah.
hear and you won't let in like the other people that are saying maybe this isn't right, maybe psychics aren't
Mm-hmm.
like real or the best, or not all of them are. If you
Yeah.
don't let any of that like other into your bubble, you get a little stuck there. So once something like broke a hole in my bubble and like a little bit of that light of oh no, Ross and Carrie leaked in, I was like,
Yeah.
ooh. So I haven't gone completely to like this is all bullshit, but I'm like, ugh, like
Yeah.
listening to that other side really helped ramp up my what's the word? I'll just say intuition, or
Yeah.
just
Like
like
awareness. Yeah.
awareness of like, a little bit of that shield that you need in life of like, let me
Mm-hmm.
myself, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think what I really love about your story too, Jessica, is like the fact that you've been through this journey of rediscovering what it means to quote unquote find your purpose, whatever you want to call it, right? And talk to us a little bit about like where you are today. You still work a 9 to 5 in corporate, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's still obviously, I'm sure, every once in a while, like every human being, I'm sure there's still those like voices that pop up inside you every once in a while. They're like, oh my gosh, am I meant for something more? Should I be doing something else? But like, what is your reality today, and how have you become, I guess, more comfortable with the fact that, you know what? Actually, I don't have to find shit. My purpose
Yeah.
can be who I am today. What got you to that point, and what is life like for you today?
Yeah, I'm still like rolling through that point, like I don't
Yeah.
feel like completely good about it. I'm like right in the middle of it where it's just like, I don't know, it's a balance for me where I really like the security of
Mm-hmm.
my 9 to 5 and my income come in. I do really like what I do for work, like working in fashion is fun for me. But what's not fun is having to like go somewhere 9 to 5 and like, I don't know, everything that comes with corporate, I absolutely do hate it.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it's again kind of realizing that I don't have to, I don't know, I always connect it to like, oh, if only I was a painter or an artist, like then I would have a
Mm.
purpose. It's like really finally letting go of that. Like you don't have to have some creative thing and make something for that to be your purpose in life.
Ooh, that's so
And,
good.
just telling myself that, you know, yeah, your job is not your purpose and you don't have to make your whatever your leisurely crafting thing into your purpose either. Like whatever you
Yeah.
like doesn't have to be your purpose. Because something that I struggled with is I don't really like a lot of things, right? I'm like the things I like to do is like, watching YouTube and going down like rabbit hole videos and just chilling
Yeah.
on the couch and, walking on the beach. Like I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, so I'm just like this horrible human that doesn't have a purpose, doesn't have any creative outlets, but I'm like, we all don't have to have those things and like make it into a
Ugh,
job. So it's really
yes.
just like telling myself that and like being more okay with like being in corporate and just like, this is the way the world works. I need money to live. I do enjoy my job. Because another thing, not connected to like spirituality or anything like that, is I think like when we all went into this corporate world, we were all like, we need to like keep going and like be the VP one day, get
Yeah.
there. And like that's something I'm like really wanting to release as well because I'm like, that kind of sounds like horrible. I don't know if I want
Yeah.
to be like the vice president of a huge company or run my own company and have like hundreds of people underneath me and like be their like mommy and like have to deal with like all these people either. Like all those things sound horrible. So
Yeah.
it's really like, I don't know. And I have to go through this daily, like talking to myself, like it's okay where I am right now. Like I have
Yeah.
a balance in life. I do have work-life balance. So it's like, for the people who are unhappy with their corporate job, maybe you can find a different one too to find that balance. If you think you're working like from 6 a.m. to like 8 p.m. and you really want something with like better hours and work-life balance, it's like
Mm-hmm.
balancing your life like that. So I'm just trying to change my mindset around a lot of things. Because again,
Yeah.
I think all of us millennials grew up with certain things. Like I thought, like, okay, I will get married when I'm 26. I'll have
Yeah.
all these babies by
The
then.
checklist.
I'll have
Yeah.
a house. And I know all your other guests talked about the checklist. Your one guest was talking about the house and all
Yeah.
that. And so you have all these things. And, I still struggle every day, like, having to remind myself again, like, it's okay that I'm in corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And recently I had to release other things in life where, as that millennial kid growing up, I'm like, well, my purpose will be when I'm a mom.
Mm.
Found out that also might not happen for me because of my age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not so sure now. So that's actually a difficult thing that I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting in a space where I'm like, wow, there might really be like no purpose for me. And I am still sitting here and just like, I don't need a purpose. I also
Yes.
married like the best person who's like, let's just have fun in life. Let's have fun. Let's go have fun.
Yes. Oh, I
That was
love
a really
that.
long answer to your question.
No, I fucking love it. And I love what you mentioned here too before, in our conversation before we jumped on, is like this whole, and I think so many people are going to resonate with this, of getting stuck and driving ourselves crazy to figure out our purpose. And then at the same time, beating ourselves up and thinking that we're a failure for never finding and doing that.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's huge. And I think, like, how, I guess that's the question I think that I'm sure everybody would have for you is like, how the fuck do you get beyond that one?
I'm still
Or
trying to
do
get
you?
beyond it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like this is always going to be a process for me, like before coming on your call with you and even like listening to some of your other guests, it feels like there's like a clear turnaround. I feel like for me and for most people, like it's always going to be a
Yes.
process. Like I'm
Yeah.
always going to have to like still get over like things like where I thought I'd be in my career and like just come to
Mm-hmm.
terms with where I am and to be happy and like to focus on some other things or that I thought I would be a mom and like maybe coming to terms with that might not happen either. And maybe, I'll just get more cats. No, I'm kidding. But
It's always the
so
solution.
it's always gonna be a process. And I think I'm really working on just like the inner dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been working on, which everyone probably the best psychic advice I've gotten from all psychics is like, and my husband, is just like, just flow with life. That's been so hard for me. And I know you do
Mm.
human design, and it's something that like has turned me off so much from like looking at my human design like chart because it says that I'm supposed to just like sit back and like flow and then make decisions. I'm like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
This is so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should listen to that a little bit more too.
I mean, it's
So
just
these are
one
all things
thing.
that are just like I'm practicing and I'm like really bad at, but it's like
Yeah.
every day trying to like remind myself to just like be okay with things, flow through life, like let go of fear. I think the pandemic put a lot of fear into me as well.
Yeah,
Fear of
everybody.
like going out, and
Mm-hmm.
getting sick at any moment. I feel like I'm rambling again, but basically, yeah, I don't have like any great advice that I'm still going through it. And
Yeah.
if you are too, you're not alone.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, right? Is realizing just that you're not alone.
Oh, I think I had one other topic that we talked about too, where um purpose isn't just like, oh, I'll just give this example because I just started making scrunchies on my sewing machine. My purpose in
Mm-hmm.
life isn't going to be selling scrunchies, right? Because I'm trying to get good at scrunchie making, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like something you can produce and be good at, or like being a photographer, being that. Like that doesn't have to be, that could be some people's what they feel like their purpose is.
Yeah.
But for me, I think you can have little points in life that are a purpose, right?
Mm.
So when I was getting sued by the ayahuasca resort, and a lot of people were kind of realizing things about it, whether it was people that worked there and they were trying to like leave, or people that might have been in a relationship with people that worked there that was trying to leave. It was kind of getting like a little culty, thinking about it, or other
Mm-hmm.
people, other guests that were like hurt by the place. I became kind of like this underground person for people to reach out to. I would get random emails and be like, hey, are you the girl that wrote the blog? And I would connect them to my lawyer, other lawyers, and even a reporter who did a Vice story on the place.
Oh, wow.
So if anyone's wondering, you can probably fish it out. So I felt like such a sense of purpose in that moment that I was, so again, it's not like a career that I'm like helping people like leave weird culty places.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I feel, you know, I don't know, such a sense of, again, purpose, and like I did something good in the world, and it was just a
Mm-hmm.
moment in time. And I might have more moments like that. And I
Yeah.
might have had moments like that, even in the further past than that moment,
Yeah.
where I didn't even know I was helping people so much. So again, not to be like, help people, I helped people, but there could be specific moments in your life where you're like, that felt like I was meant to be here,
Yeah.
that specific thing,
Yeah.
to facilitate that, to help that. And so I feel, again, a really great sense of like accomplishment almost by being
Mm-hmm.
a person that, was able to connect others.
Yeah. I can't remember if I heard this or read this somewhere else or if I just made it up on my own one day. It very could well be either or. But it's this whole idea that like we don't find our purpose, we become of purpose. Of just
I
like
love that.
from one moment to the next, you don't have to find one single purpose that's, you're going to go out there and go capture and then you're going to become this new magical human being one day, right? It's like from day to day, you become of purpose by simply doing what feels right to you, by simply being who you authentically are, right? And if that so happens to help somebody else, then amazing, right? You are becoming of purpose, and stop trying to go out there and chase this purpose of yours when in reality it's right here. It's been within you all along, and all you have to do is just use yourself to become of purpose to others. So
Exactly.
yeah,
I love that.
there you go. Well, Jessica, I mean, I think it goes without saying that people are going to fall in love with this episode because I know that I have. I told Jessica before we jumped on, I was like, oh
Oh,
my God, I'm so excited for this because, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more of kind of that unconventional story where it's like, you know, we talked about this before too. You don't have to quit your job to quote unquote reset, right? You don't have to make some huge substantial change. Yes, of course, if that feels right for you, go do it. But it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It can be something as simple as just a shift in awareness, a shift in your mindset, a shift in how you think about your life on a day-to-day basis. And I think that your story is such a perfect example of that is, hey, go out there and do what feels good to you today. Have more than one passion. And if your passion is watching YouTube videos, then let that be your passion, at least for today. Just allow yourself to be you and stop comparing yourself to everybody else and the things that everybody else tells you that you should go do out in this world. So, I'm verklempt.
great summary. Just do what you want to do, but try not to get sued because I'm telling you, it's
Yeah, that too.
scary AF.
That too, I guess.
This
um,
was great.
So Jessica, I know that you just started posting on social media, but if people are listening to the podcast and they want to go stalk you down and follow you because you're fucking amazing, where can they find you and what's your social media handles and all that good stuff?
I'm like, let me look at my TikTok
You're like, let
handle.
me
I
remind
just
you.
joined TikTok and I think it's so much better than Instagram. And I have to look at what my handle is. Yeah, so it's at Sandy with an IE _ peaches.
At Sandy Peaches, and we'll be sure to post that too on the podcast page as well, so people can go follow you and learn a little bit more about your journey. But Jessica, thank you so much once again for coming on. It's been so great to have you on the Millennial Reset.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode. Like we mentioned, go out there, stop comparing yourself to others. Don't think that you have to go and find a purpose. Become of purpose. Be sure to tune in next time and visit www.themillennialreset.com so you can subscribe to the podcast and share with all of your millennial besties. See you next time. Hey besties, if you're one of the millions of millennials feeling stuck in a constant state of stress and burnout, then number one, you're not alone. And number two, there is a way out. Be sure to check out www.themillennialreset.com for free online workshops, or you can become a member and join a community of support to learn a better way out of burnout.